Everybody's on? Now let's call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the local planning agency of the town of Gulfstream. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Again, before our commission meeting, this is going to be a local planning agency with recommendations made to the town commission. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Orthwine?
Here.
Mayor Morgan?
Here.
Also present are Town Manager Dunham, Assistant Town Attorney Nazaro, Captain Hasley, setting in for Chief Allen, and myself.
Thank you very much. We have an application for a comprehensive plan amendment. Mr. Dunham, would you please explain the purpose of the meeting?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The application that is before us today, both at the local planning agency meeting and the regular meeting, has a complicated approval process that needs to be followed. It has several elements that require approval both by the town and also by the state. I'm going to ask our Assistant Town Attorney, Mr. Nazaro, to explain the process and help navigate you through the review process.
Thank you. Mr. Nazaro?
Thank you, Mr. Donovan, Mayor. The Town Commission is sitting as the local planning agency, which is required to review and make a recommendation on amendments to the town's comprehensive plan. This is the only approval that will be formally voted on as part of the LPA meeting. In order for you to have enough information on why this application should be recommended for approval, the applicant has agreed to present the remaining approvals, of which there are 4 more, in an informal workshop format, so you can ask questions or give suggestions, but those approvals will not be heard until the Town Commission meeting, as further explained in the staff report. Just as by way of a little background, the applicant and the town have been discussing this project for well over a year, maybe approaching 2 years. When we were initially approached to discuss the golf club property, the desire was potentially to rezone it to a multifamily to allow the creation of townhomes. Town staff advised they did not think that would meet approval, noting there were no multifamily zoned parcels in Gulfstream west of the Intercoastal Waterway. The town was next approached with a project that would have required certain approvals that were inconsistent with the town code to require increased density. Town staff also advised they did not think the commission would approve that application. So the application before you is radically different than previous discussions because the applicant negotiated a land swap, which they'll discuss, with the Florida Inland Navigation District to create a parcel of land that has access both to the community's entryway and running east-west of the Intercoastal Waterway, providing the town with 14 new single-family lots, including 2 that front on the Intercoastal Waterway. So it is the result of a lot of hard work by the applicant to provide the town with a development whose intent is to naturally integrate into the Place au Soleil neighborhood and has been recommended for approval by the Arpv.
Thank you very much. Who's going to speak today? Anyone who's going to speak, please rise and be sworn. Ms. Taylor?
You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Mr. Goodstein?
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. My name is Kerry Glickstein, and I'm here as the agent for the proposed Blue Water Cove development applications before you. First, I'd like to thank town staff. Trey went through a bit of a summary. It has been somewhat of a, it's been a long process, but Greg, Rita, Trey, and Marty Miner, I really would like to express my appreciation for their cooperation. I've had the pleasure and misfortune of dealing with many municipal planning departments and very much appreciate the timely assistance and professionalism we received from your staff. Next, I'd like to introduce the design professionals, many of whom are familiar to Gulfstream. Mike Cavelli will present the proposed land use changes. Rusty Coopy will present the site plan and proposed text amendment. Dave Bodker will present the proposed landscape plans, and Brian Beckers is here to answer any civil engineering questions. As a brief summary, the project represents a reconfiguration of 2 unimproved parcels located at the far northwest boundary of your town. Viewing the parcels as they are, the Gulfstream Golf Club owns approximately 7.5 acres adjacent to US 1 from Avenue Soleil to the southern boundary of Boynton Beach. The Florida Inland Navigation District, or FINE, owns approximately 7 acres between the golf club parcel, the Intercoastal Waterway, and the southeast boundary of unincorporated Palm Beach County. The proposed plans contemplate a reorientation of these two parcels such that instead of the current east to west division of ownership and uses, there would be a north to south division of ownership and uses. The proposed reorientation, which retains the same acreage as exists now, leaves ownership of the north parcel with FINE, while the south parcel becomes an extension of Plaza Soleil with a new roadway connection to Avenue Soleil, new water, sewer, and drainage utilities, and 14 new single-family homes. With the exception of the proposed text amendment, the proposed development mirrors all land use and zoning requirements for Plaza Soleil. While we try to incorporate what is referred to as the 2900 property that abuts the north side of Plaza Soleil into our development plan, both transactional uncertainties and engineering complexities were unfortunately too much to overcome. In our view, the proposed development represents a meaningful and complementary addition to the town in general, and Plaza Soleil specifically. By adding new infrastructure and 14 new single-family homes to Plaza Soleil, the town's tax base will increase, while also increasing property values within Plaza Soleil, all without adding any additional expenses to the town. This, in our view, will also move the FINE boundary to the far north boundary of your town, thereby creating a green space buffer between Gulfstream and neighboring municipalities. While I remain available to answer any questions, I'll now turn it over to Mike Cavelli to discuss the proposed land use changes, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, all. My name is Mike Cavelli. I'm the land planner on the project. As you can see from your package, there's an extensive amount of research and evaluation that's been done. It's a very extensive package in terms of all of the items that have to be evaluated when doing an application of this type. And I'll walk you through some of that analysis. Just in terms of the first part of it, if you look at the map, this line right here is the current dividing line between the club and FINE in this area here. You can see that there was a land swap where basically this part of the club land went to FINE, and the configuration of this property is such that FINE did not lose any property. And so as a result of them not losing or gaining, you end up with the south parcel in the configuration it's in. It's a little narrower because of that requirement, and that's part of why the text changes, which Rusty will talk about. But, and so you can see that the resulting is that FINE has a piece that runs from Federal Highway to the Intercoastal, and the proposed Blue Water Cove also goes from the Intercoastal to the Federal Highway. So the configuration is much better in terms of access, and no one has an advantage in terms of their parcel configuration. In doing these, there's a number of criteria that are evaluated when requesting a comprehensive plan. The first item is just the compatibility of the surrounding area. You can see that this will be single family, and it will be of the similar development standards as Plaza Soleil. There will be a buffer along the northern property in the FINE property, and you have the Intercoastal with more single family to the west, and of course you have Federal Highway, which is quite a wide roadway with Walmart to the other side. if you look at the development plan, you'll see that the front of this property has a very large green area that serves as a buffer to that. So in terms of compatibility, the property is situated so that the surrounding uses are not infringed upon in terms of the use or intensity or density. Let me change this plan. In terms of the land use, this is the existing configuration where this is the parcel that's owned by the golf club, and this is the parcel that's owned by Fine, and this is public facility, and this is open space recreation. The proposed configuration would be that the single family would extend into this area, and the Fine resulting parcel would be public facility. And as you can see from this map, just by virtue of color, the compatibility in terms of those uses being very similar. The maximum density that's permitted in the single-family residential Places Soleil designation is 2.9 units to the acre, which would result in 22 units being able to be placed on the site. With the development plan that we're using, we are at 1.83 dwelling units to the acre at 14, so we are well below the maximum density that could be placed on this under the parameters of your current comprehensive plan. In terms of evaluating the comprehensive plan application, one of the other things that you look at is in the comprehensive plan, there are goals, objectives, and policies that spell out a number of different items that one should look at. We went through all those items, and they're all in your backup package. It's quite an extensive amount of listing for those goals and objectives in your package, but I will tell you that we are in compliance with the applicable goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan for this project. One of the other criteria that you look at when you do a comprehensive plan is that what kind of economic impact does it have? Currently, the rec area pays taxes, Fine does not. The taxes that are paid by the club are $471 annually. With this proposal, for single family, the estimation is $140,000 annually. So there's quite an increase in the money bringing into the city in terms of the economic side of this plan. And then finally, one of the other items that we have to look at in terms of this plan evaluation for this change is essential services. That would include potable water, sanitary sewer, stormwater management, solid waste, parks and recreation, traffic circulation, mass transit, public schools, fire protection services, and police protection services. And according to the levels of service that are in your comprehensive plan and the evaluations that were prepared, all of these items are found to be adequate to support this project. So in terms of the comprehensive plan, you're required to make positive findings that of all of these items, and I will tell you that with the backup in the report and the evaluations that have been done, that you can make positive findings that all of these items are in compliance for this comprehensive plan change. The next item would be rezoning. And you will see that a similar pattern in terms of the previous zoning for the club, you can see by color very easily, and the zoning for the Fine property the proposed is the zoning would be the single-family residential, place of soleil zoning, and the remaining parcel with the land swap would be public facilities for fine. The justification for the rezoning is very similar to what I just spelled out for the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, there's a requirement that if you change the comprehensive plan, that the zoning must be consistent with that land use designation. So this rezoning would actually establish the proper zoning categories for those parcels in conjunction with changing the land use designation that we just talked about. So we would be changing those items specifically to be in compliance. Density that would be ruled by the development plan, and which you'll see in a minute. And we have found that all the standards in this application have been met, and therefore for the zoning you can also make positive findings that the zoning is appropriate for this. All of the development standards associated with the single-family residential place of soleil designation are in compliance in the development plan that we're proposing, with the exception of a rear setback text change, which Rusty will talk about here in a minute. We'll obviously be available for questions at the end of this. Rusty?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Rustam Kupi, the architect for the project. What we're planning on doing, the houses, we're well under the density. When we reconfigured the sites, we tried to make the lots wider and shallower to allow more light into the houses, so that you didn't have a long, narrow house, you had a wider house. In doing so, the only text amendment change that we're talking about, all the setbacks regarding buildings and everything remain the same. The only text amendment that we're requesting are for lots 1 through 6 and lots 9 through 14. And that's regarding the pool setback. Currently, it sits at 15 feet, and we're requesting that it be taken to 10 feet, since we're on the north side, lots 1 through 6 will always abut the fine property. And there's an easement there that's landscaped, so they'll always have the landscaping there. And lots 9 through 14, abut the 2900 property, which is their access. So you're not doing any damage to the houses that are on the south side of 2900 property, because that's just their access easement to get down to their main property, which is on the water. So what we're requesting is a text amendment to allow the pools to be, instead of 15 feet off of the property line, allow them to be 10 feet off the property line. Lots 7 and 8 would remain the setbacks on the intercoastal as per the rest of the place of soleil angles. So the only text amendment would be affecting lots 1 through 6 and 9 through 14, since we have the buffer on both the south and north sides of that. So that's the only text amendment. Otherwise, we meet all the setback requirements, we meet all the height requirements, everything else stays intact. And this is only for place au soleil, this annex portion. So I wouldn't do anything. This is just for plat number 2. So the place au soleil standards of the 15 feet and everything still remain for the existing area. I can show you here the reconfigured. This is the fine property. This is the intercoastal. This is the 2900 property. So this is their access coming down through here in this whole area. So lots 9 through 14 back up to that access. And then lots 1 through 6 back up to the fine property, of which the 15 feet on the fine property, they're actually allowing us to put plantings in to buffer that whole area from our property.
So the reason for changing from 15 to 10 is, at least on the north side, you just have the fine property, which would not be interfered with.
Correct.
But the south side,
The south side, the only thing on the south side of those lots is the access road for the 2900 property, which runs along this whole area here. Let me see if I can. This is Dave's board here. You can sort of see how he has it. This is the 2900 property there. They have their access right at the, coming in the gate, they have their access right there and it would remain. And then it loops around and they have a tennis court here and then it comes down and they have their garages and it's just all an access road to the house that's down here. So we wouldn't be interfering. All the other houses in Place of Soleil are actually on the south side of that property. And it's a very odd property with all sorts of easements, as Mr. Flipstein said. There's a lot of things going on there, water easements and things that are legally very challenging to get rid of. So these lots 9 through 14 would back up basically on their tennis court and their driveway. And their house is actually down here by lot 8, so it wouldn't really affect the main house. So the idea is that
those lots near the house are not, you're not seeking a change in
Lot
setback.
7 and 8, we are not seeking any changes. Those remain with the same setback as the rest of Place of Soleil and the intercoastal per town code, existing town code.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Dave Bodker. Along the federal highway frontage of this property, we're proposing a 6-foot high white masonry wall. And on the outside of that wall, we're proposing fuchsia hedge interspersed with bougainvillea vine. On the east side of the wall, we're proposing fishtail palms. Around this parcel, which we call kind of a park or the green area, we're proposing live oak trees circling here. And then on the entrance road that comes into this site, we're proposing vera wood trees to circle here. In addition, we'll have a split rail fence. The entrance to this Blue Water Cove portion of Place of Soleil, at the entrance points, the 2 entrance points will be flanked by Sylvester date palms here and here, here and here, and be underplanted as well. So along the south property line, on the west side of the entrance to Blue Water Cove, there's an existing ficus hedge, and we're proposing to remove that and put in a fuchsia hedge, 6-foot height in there as well. And then we're taking the existing sable palms from this parcel of land and putting them behind that fuchsia hedge to further screen this new parcel. Along the south property line, we're proposing green buttonwood trees and a fuchsia hedge and a 6-foot chain link fence. So that'll run the length here. We're doing the same thing on the north side with the green buttonwood trees, the fuchsia hedge, and a 6-foot chain link fence. But as Rusty mentioned, on the north side of our property line, we're going to plant areca palms, or it could possibly be a native tree. So we're going further to screen what's north of this property with the arecas. The street tree is live oaks, and we plan on planting them 1 for every 45 feet. There's 2 cul-de-sacs, as you can see, and we're planning to put pavers around those, and a specimen tree of some type in each one of these, like a strangler fig or otherwise. And essentially, that's it for the landscape plan for this portion of the site. We're planning on doing some work on Plaza Soleil entrance, and I'll go through that in a minute, but if you have any questions on this portion, I'll be glad to answer those. So the entrance now to come into Blue Water Cove, we need to reconfigure the entrance to Plaza Soleil for some turning lanes. So when you come in here, you can make a right turn from a turning lane here. And when you make the turn from here, we'll need to widen this part of the entrance also. So we'll reconfigure that, but what that causes to happen is that we need to reconfigure the planting for the entrance. And we plan on using exactly the same palette of plants that exists there now, just reconfigured. And we plan on doing that on both sides. There's two existing royal palms on the, there's four existing royal palms on the south side of the entrance, two of which will be in the way of the reconfiguration. And they're quite tall, so we plan on taking those two and putting them on the north side, and then putting two new ones on the south side and two new ones on the north side, so that the entrance is more matched from what they are currently. And any questions?
No, makes sense. Listening, anyone else wish to speak?
No, Mayor, that concludes the presentation for the local planning agency, and, as I mentioned, we've got a civil engineer here for any questions, and of course, any of the presenters remain available, as well as myself, for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed to our workshop portion. Questions. I just had a question based on the consistency of services to be provided between the two developments, Plaza Soleil as it exists now, and and Blue Water Cove. Water would be supplied by Delray Beach.
Yes, Mayor.
Waste removal.
Both water and sewer. I would imagine there's an existing interlocal agreement now between Delray Beach and Gulfstream, as you know, for water, and there's plenty of capacity there. We would be responsible for making all those connections, which are near the north side of the entrance now. In terms of sewer, we are adding, I don't know the exact lineal footage, but it's a fairly long run of force main from where it ends in Delray, south of the entrance of Plaza Soleil, to the new lift station that will be provided for the new homes. That force main would be available. I would add that if at any time Plaza Soleil wants to connect to a sewer system, that force main would be there at no expense to the town. The lift station, which would be new, I think it's sized for certain capacity now, but those things can be increased for additional capacity if that's the ultimate goal of the town to make that connection. I've got an engineer here if we want to take a deeper dive into any of that.
Only to the extent how difficult is it to expand that lift station capability should an extension be made to the existing Plaza Soleil? Is it a matter of a pump, or is it a matter of expanding the actual?
It's pump size, and as far as I know, my understanding is that they are sized for what you need. If you size them for more than what you need, the pumps will burn out. So that the pumps have to be sized for what the need is. So I don't think that, we're not sizing it for Plaza Soleil, we're sizing it for what we're constructing.
Other questions from Mr. Glickstein or any of the other witnesses who spoke?
I have, the Well, the guard gate, the existing guard gate, will that be in the same location? Is the extra lane being taken out of the south, landscaped area?
Commissioner, the guardhouse,
The guardhouse.
the guardhouse is not changing, other than we'd like to repaint it or maybe some other aesthetic modifications. I've been asked by the HOA to constantly, but it is not moving.
The placement will be there.
Yes, ma'am.
So for the other lane, there will be 2 lanes to come in. That'll be taken out of the landscaping, the existing landscaping on the south side.
Yes, ma'am. As Mr. Bodker mentioned, that landscape is being reconfigured by the amount of area that the paving is increasing to accommodate that turn lane.
I've got a question for Mr. Kupi. Although it's not at issue right here, we're just talking about land use. Ultimately, you'll be putting homes, obviously, in these 14 lots. Are these going to be spec homes? Are they custom homes? What are the designs that you anticipate employing?
They're all gonna appear different. They're all gonna look just like Gulfstream currently doesn't allow the houses to look cookie cutter or anything like that. We'll maintain that. In the beginning, I'll let Mr. Glickstein answer, but in the beginning, I think he's planning on doing 1 or 2 homes to start it off and then hopefully selling them and basically doing houses in that manner.
I think we'd like to start off with 3 homes. That's the plan, 2 to 3 homes, and sell from there. I would anticipate a 2 to 3 year process from start to finish is a reasonable timeline.
One thing regarding Commissioner White's question on the gatehouse, the guardhouse. One thing to keep in mind is currently there's a septic field on the south side of the entrance. We're actually going to connect the guardhouse to our system and get rid of the septic system that's currently there. So the guardhouse will be hooked up to the new lift station, which is a good thing. The idea of adding the lane was actually because currently the entry is very tight for trucks. They always run over the edge and everything like that. So widening that a bit will make it easier for people turning left for the new development, and people, the existing neighborhood can turn to the right with much more ease. And by connecting the guardhouse to that lift station, that allows us to get rid of that septic field and do that. So it's a win-win.
The town recently invested a good bit into decorative lighting to Plaza Soleil. Those same lights will be extended into the water, I take it?
Sure, yes.
Same design, everything,
Same thing.
consistent.
We're trying to make it as consistent with Plaza Soleil as possible.
Okay.
There would not be, related to that, Mayor, there's not going to be any project signage. It's just a street sign. So Avenue Soleil would connect to a new street, the spine that's for these 14 homes. But the idea is to improve the entrance and make this a seamless addition to what's there. So in terms of the consistency, the amenities that are in Plaza Soleil, street lights, not maybe thinking of something else, but the idea would be to make them consistent.
Okay, very good. Other questions?
Construction entrance, where would that be?
The idea is to have all of the site work construction utilize the entrance that's there now, which is not the
Fine.
where on the other side of that ficus hedge where there's an existing gate. It isn't a perfect solution, but it will. And when I say the site work, I'm talking about all of the infrastructure, which I think is the most intrusive. The home construction is really no different than what you're going to see in Plaza Soleil today. But the site work traffic, which we think is about a 4-month process, would utilize the entrance that's north of your entrance now.
So it shouldn't obstruct the residents.
I don't believe so. I mean, it's not a big project, but it is, that part of it is intensive. The good news is we hope to be doing that over the summer.
And they wouldn't be using the garden, your main entrance. They'd be to the north of it.
I think most of the residents of Plaza Soleil are full-time.
Good.
And as they bring in the sewer and the utilities, that will come under the roadway, up under the entrance.
That's right. I'm not gonna represent that there's not going to be inconvenience. There will be. But we plan on using the same, I don't know if this is good or bad, the same site work contractor that recently did your water main. So they're used to working around your town. They're used to working with your staff. I've heard anecdotally that the experience wasn't that bad as it could be. But I'm sure that there's different opinions on that, but in the event, that's the plan. But there will be inconvenience. It's just the nature. I mean, you saw what was happening with the recent backflow preventer that was there. There's ways to minimize that inconvenience with people that know what they're doing, that know that they're working around existing homeowners.
And I thank you for working with the town and getting that screen timely done. That's it's very obvious.
Here, the last subdivision the town did had an issue with emergency vehicle access. They used a hammerhead at the end of the street design. This is a circular design. Does that meet whatever requirements or whatever preferences there are for emergency vehicle access?
It does. And I've spoken with the fire marshal, because we wanted, one of the original comments was from Mr. Minor, looking out for your town. He wanted to see a tree in the middle of that roundabout. And so I had a conversation with the fire marshal. If we make this wide enough, can we include a large tree there? And he had no problem with what we're proposing. Hammerheads are a problem. You know, they're just not the best. Hopefully you don't have to use them that much, but.
We increased the radii to meet everything to allow for the trucks to actually go around.
I'm assuming you did. I just wanted to get that on. Other questions for?
I have one more.
Yes, of course, please.
And is the community being set up with its own homeowners association? Will it be part of the Plaza Soleil?
We have to do that. I have to have a separate HOA, primarily because the way the drainage requirements of South Florida Water Management District, they're going to require somebody be responsible for that drainage, and that's going to be the HOA. As we've discussed with your town, in those documents, while the HOA would be responsible for that drainage, the town would have the right to do whatever it wanted to do within that public right-of-way. So yes, there will be an HOA. They'll also be responsible for maintaining the green space area that's there. Is that?
Yeah, because the present homeowners also maintains the entrance and all that, so would they contribute to that, to the general end?
I spoke to Mr. Snavely about that specifically, and I told him that I can't obligate these homeowners to do anything more than your existing homeowners do, but to the extent that there's a contribution for that purpose, that contribution would be included in the contributions they're making to this new HOA. It's in their best interest, just like it is all the residents, to make sure the entrance is maintained.
They'd be providing funds for maintenance.
Right.
And as
Through a separate HOA.
All I'm saying is some contribution.
Yes.
To the general,
And related to that, I think it would make sense to have, we talked, that the same company would be representing not only the entrance, but that green space area, which would be public for people that live in Plaza Soleil. It's not isolated, it's not fenced off, we don't want to make that, an active park area, because of the attractive nuisance issues given its location, but in terms of just an open green space area, it's gonna require maintenance that this HOA is gonna have to maintain.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the legal ramifications of it, I'm sure you do, Carrie. Is there any prohibition on the Blue Water Cove Homeowners Association, those residents, then also becoming part of the Plaza Soleil Homeowners Association?
Well, the Plaza Soleil Association, as best I know, is not compulsory. It wasn't a recorded HOA, like what we would be doing and what typically is done. I think the contributions, from what I understand, are voluntary.
Well, not really, but, I mean, I think everyone does belong.
They do it, but it's not.
Along the way, there was some lapse of something, but I wouldn't say it's voluntary.
There's no way to assess the owners for non-payment, like there would be in a typical HOA, like what we would be
What you're going to
establishing.
do with Blue Water.
That's right. And what I was mentioning to Mr. Snavely is I can't make the obligations of these new homeowners different than what your existing homeowners' obligations are. So what I represented is we've got the obligations of this HOA, and to the extent whatever exists for Plaza Soleil now for their residents, that would be extended to these new homeowners as well, that obligation. So not increasing it and not minimizing it in any way, just matching it. To be honest with you, Mayor, I've never seen a clear document that really depicts what these homeowners are required to do. I think it's more of you've got volunteers that are there to kind of run an HOA, but it's not really, it's not organized, it's not run, it's not operated per statute, because it was just never established that way.
Well, it was established.
That's what I'm just confused. I've never seen the document that requires the payment and provides the right of assessment to the HOA for people that don't pay.
Mr. Nazaro, do you know whether or not?
I'm not familiar with this issue and whether or not there's some sort of document. I've seen their general document, but nothing that's been legally recorded that I can really put my finger on.
I can put a little more color on it. So typically in the Plaza Soleil, there's some covenants and restrictions that are recorded against those lots, but it's, the covenants were never revitalized, and they're very old. So, the Marketable Right Title Act, which extinguishes those. So it's just sort of, as Mr. Glickstein said, bumping along. Everybody's cooperating, there's an operating account, but it's not a bona fide homeowners association as you would establish in any planned unit development out west of town, or kind of the modified situation we have here. So if you're, in order not to, give a lecture on that for 2 hours, if you're seeking, the only party that this homeowners association can contract with for maintenance responsibilities is going to be with the town. It's too hard to deal with, basically a voluntary homeowners association with a budget, and Plaza Soleil in the existing community. So that's, if you're seeking some sort of contributions, when you get to the homeowners association document level, not to charge the developer or the homeowners more money, but that is the question. Then how do you get money from those homeowners to compensate for the town, which is really, the town really maintains the gatehouse. It's not the individual property of the HOA of Plaza Soleil, just for all the reasons we just stated. So if you're looking for a contribution, then it's going to have to be an agreement with the town, as per the gate. And again, that's what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm talking about the landscape.
Either way, it's a public right of way. Yeah, you're saying, okay, I've got 14 houses, we've got increased traffic, everybody wants this gate to look nice, it's gonna cost more money, then, where's the coming from?
It's almost like the Gulfstream Civic Association.
Correct. Yeah, very similar in layman's terms.
And so easily Blue Water Cove residents could become part of that.
Sure, they can just say, hey, it's $150, we all want you to join, pass out letters, and, here you go. But they have to have their own HOA for, the main reason for some of the utilities and whatnot required to be maintained in the green space.
Probably if they have their own HOA, they're not gonna be it's not a big incentive to be part of your HOA, because they're two separate, they're together, but they're two separate.
But
they could.
I think they would
being
because
part
of the
civic
entrance.
association then.
I think
Yeah,
they participate in it because the entrance, they wanna make sure that the entrance
Yeah.
stays beautiful and that area in front stays beautiful. So I think there is incentive for all of them to do that. I think, if there wouldn't be an HOA for the new development, the only reason there's an HOA for the new development is because of the sanitary lines and the infrastructure and requirements by South Florida Water Management with drainage and things like that, because they want to make sure that somebody's responsible to maintain the catch basins and keep them clean and keep the pipes clean to make sure that their drainage works correctly. So and the green area in front of the, green space in front of those houses. So that HOA is there because of that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have an HOA, and they'd just be matching whatever Place Soleil is doing. So I definitely see, as Mr. Glickman said, them having that HOA for one purpose, but at the same time, the sense of community is per Place Soleil, it's going to be the same, and they're going to want to contribute to maintain that whole front area.
Putting this
history and all that.
Yes, and putting this in perspective, these are $1 million homes. The contribution of Plaza Soleil's
It's not a lot of
HOA,
money.
I think, is a couple $100. So in the grand scheme of things, I guess the way to represent this is we are amenable to doing whatever the town wants with respect to keeping it the way it is, keeping it well maintained. And if it's contractual, if the town is maintaining it and there's some financial contribution for that, whatever's fair is fine with me. Obligating this HOA to contribute, that's also fine. I didn't want to expand the obligations of these homeowners beyond what exists there today.
No, certainly, I understand. And, we worked well with you throughout this whole process. It's really been a pleasure. So, I don't think it's going to be an issue. Other questions? How about from the public? Any public comments? Yes. Bob?
Do you want me to go up there or?
Whichever you prefer.
I'll stand here.
You can hear it.
As the only person in this room, I assume, who has spent at least 100 hours with find when they put the garbage back into the hole at the south end. I just wonder, and I apologize because obviously my brain is not working very well and I haven't really studied this at all. But what it would happen if Find decided to use their property again to cull garbage out of the intercoastal and place it on the land that they own north of this property? Do we have? I'm sure that when you negotiated the whole thing, it was well thought through. But having lived with Find for many months, when they put the crap back in on their land to the south, what would happen?
Okay, so it's like most things with state agencies, there's no simple explanation, but this is the best I can do. First of all, Find can do whatever they want to do now with that property.
Mm-hmm.
So, that property historically has never been used for a storage, a spoil site.
Mm-hmm.
It is my understanding that, and I have seen it in black and white, that Fine has different designations for their properties, active use, surplus properties. This property is designated as surplus. And the reason it's designated as surplus is because the access was not really practical. And, they have an active site so close. The fact that this site is getting narrower, the conversations that I've had with Fine is that it is too narrow to operate. If you look at the site south of this, you can see that it is much wider than the Fine site as it's configured today. But at 180 feet, they don't have the ability to do what they are doing south of this property. So I suspect that this will remain as a surplus property in perpetuity, and it will remain as that Fine property has existed for decades, a mowed field. That's the best I can tell you. But they have the right, under their charter, to do what they're allowed to do under their charter.
I could add
With
one
the
more
buffer.
thing.
With a buffer, there is a buffer, right.
The nice thing about the way it's reconfigured is that the access to that Fine site now is on the north end of the new Fine site. So it's moving it away from the entrance of Place of Soleil. And if they ever had trucks, which now they go through the gate just to the north, they'd be accessing that site
That's a good point.
further north, which is at the other end. So it would be taking away, moving it 300, 400 feet.
Their access is being moved to the far northeast corner of this property. So essentially on the edge of Boynton Beach, as opposed to the edge of your entrance to Plaza Soleil, which is existing.
All I can say is that, you gotta watch them like hawks, because, it was, everything they wanted to do was contrary to the interests of the people in Plaza Soleil. And it was one step at a time to get them to agree to what was just prudent. I mean, not anything outrageous, but just prudent. To, if you're in Tallahassee or wherever the guy that we were dealing with was, it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time worrying about it. And I just want to make sure that somebody here in Gulfstream is understands what might happen and has a plan for what we would do if they did what might happen.
Thanks, Bob. Any other public comment? Ingrid? Very good. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion regarding the recommendation of approving the comprehensive plan amendment as presented?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to recommend approval of the comp plan amendment to convert the site's existing future land use designation from public to REC recreation into SF single family and to keep the public as proposed in ordinance 21-1.
Is there a second? I heard a second from you.
Yeah.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
I will be recusing myself, because I have a conflict of interest. Is that the correct way to?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Lyons is recused.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein? Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Any other comments? If not, this meeting is adjourned. All right, let's move on now to our regular commission meeting. Move all this documentation away. Anybody need a break or can we continue?
Can you give me 2 minutes?
Of course. I will be reconvening in 2 minutes.
I didn't want to belong, I mean, they have their own issues, you have your own. And we're always trying to sit with them, always trying to get you to be part of us too. So, I mean, there seems like a lot of
Yeah, I
that
think
now.
that's
Folks can voluntarily bring them this year.
Yeah.
One whole place.
Yeah.
Kind of expensive. And I think they want to involve.
They've been doing their own, they have their own, and no one really takes care of the gate. So, I mean, there's
Yeah, it's
not,
really not that.
it's not that.
Right, but you want to isolate the HOA to them
Yeah.
statutory, so that you don't have to.
Because there's some landscaping things they there.
Yeah.
It's what they.
Yeah, there's a bunch of issues that there are, that you want nothing to do with this.
And now we're eating.
But they do have a. Give me a call.
I'm gonna call you. Thanks, can you say your shirt? On what? Oh, interesting. You do?
I don't think you're gonna have any trouble. These are
Not
expensive.
much, I mean, our dues are $100, and then they want us to put $50 in for the citizens association, which most people do.
Okay, that's what, yeah, you do that too.
So most people do. So it's $100, but even if they don't consider the whole $100, then, maybe it's,
So would you say the residents in Plaza Soleil, the $100 of Plaza Soleil, and
This
then
is right up your alley, isn't it?
civic, if you go.
Ron turns around there. It was.
There's a few of those in Ocean Ridge. The covenants for like five houses on the Old Ocean, off of Mount Street to the south, they're all having an old HOA. Still on Sunbit, but it's been extinguished by Martin, but it appears on a title commitment. Because it's a big long architectural review thing, you're supposed to have your plans approved by the board.
Yeah, but
before you go to
basically, when
the
you
town.
send out your bill, it's
It's
just
the
for
plan.
Plaza Soleil, and the civic.
Like, they'll get a letter
That's
from your
your
neighbor.
bill, right? It's all together. That's what I was getting at. Your bill is all together.
Prior to the sale of the whole 14.
Developer.
Developer has to be transferred.
Right, yeah. So it's like in layman's terms in North Carolina, they call it the clearance. Usually it's a period, but they all have to do like a 2% penalty when it's way on the sale. Yeah, and they transfer control, just like the same thing we did with 4,000.
Yeah.
We got stuck with all that. So, you know, then you'll have a separate board over there.
My concern is that somebody's afraid of it. I've never done
He
that.
could build,
Yeah, it's on the thing.
On the board.
If they want to put up their, you gotta go to the
Right now, he's
Gotcha.
The house next to me, Seaside, from the time they started putting the slab, to maybe 6 to 8 months. Then they did, when the owner was it's amazing, I mean. Is that gonna come up?
It will, because we're hearing the stuff.
Before they even.
You can do it before they, so they know that you're not participating. And I'm sorry that it's before that, yeah.
I just didn't want to, technically screw up.
No. It wasn't when she called the roll. I want to jump in. I want to try everything I can do to
So if we just decided to see it.
Well, I gotta touch it up.
No change.
Actually, I think they might.
I don't know.
I got it, totally agree.
If you want to be, 6475, I had to serve it out with the stamp. So I actually had to do, everybody knows I had to do something. I wasn't just standing in the alley, I actually had to.
I was expecting over soon, we were in
Your team is it?
Basketball, cardio.
Rita, are we ready to proceed?
I've been cardio fit ever since Jordan.
Everybody got their, microphones?
I don't think he's
Now, let's call this meeting of the town commission to order. We'll skip the pledge. Mr. Taylor, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner White? Commissioner Orthweiler? Mayor Morgan?
Here.
And the record shows that Town Manager Dunham is present, as is the Assistant Town Attorney Nazaro, and Captain Hasley in place of Chief Allen, and myself.
Thank you very much. We've been presented with the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, comments? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthweiler?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. We have one change to the agenda, Resolution 21.1, which was delivered to us yesterday, will be added as item 10B, and we'll push item 10B to item 10C. You'll make that note. Our next meeting is April 9th at 9 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend. Any comment from the public? Very good. Let's move on to the hearing. We're now going to turn again to the application that we heard of the land use meeting. Who will be speaking?
Our assistant town attorney.
Okay, that's just town attorney.
Thank you, Mayor.
Let's just swear in everybody
Yeah,
first who may be speaking.
You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Very good. All right, Mr. Mazzar.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as part of this application, there are 5 approvals that are requested. There is a comp plan amendment, which the local planning agency just recommended for approval, a rezoning change, and a text amendment. Those all are before you right now in ordinance form, and they require 2 readings. The 2 other approvals, the subdivision approval and the concurrency certification, only require 1 action from the commission, so they will be dealt with at a future meeting. So right now, just the comp plan amendment, the rezoning, the text amendment, as reflected in ordinance 21-1, 21-2, and 21-3 are before you, and Mr. Glickstein will be, and his team will be presenting those briefly.
Okay. Mr. Glickstein, you're up again.
Thank you, Trey, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. It's at your pleasure, but I've asked, since we're only dealing with the comp plan amendment, the rezoning, and the text amendment, I've asked Mike Cavelli to give a condensed version of his earlier presentation, and for Rusty Coopy to similarly summarize the text amendment change, unless you would like a full presentation of both.
No, I think your suggestion is apt.
We're happy to do the whole thing. Good morning, Mike Cavelli for the the record. What you have in front of you is a comprehensive plan amendment to, change the reconfigured properties from, recreation open space, and, public facilities, to single-family places away and to public facility. You can see on the map the change from on the left with the rec in the public facility and with the reconfiguration of the public facility and the single family. The proposed density that for the comp plan will be 1.83 units per acre with 14 units. We have gone through an analysis which is in your packet and is of record. We reviewed compatibility with the surrounding uses. We reviewed the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and we've reviewed essential services for the project. All of those items have been found to be in compliance and adequate, and therefore you can make positive findings with regards to the comprehensive plan. The justification for the rezoning is very similar. All of those items also are looked at. The primary focus on the zoning is to do zoning that is compatible with the comprehensive plan. The proposed zoning categories are compatible with those proposed land use categories, and you can also find make positive findings with regards to the rezoning. Rusty, if you want to do the text change.
Again, good morning, Rick Cookie, project architect. The text amendment that we are requesting that's before you is to allow the pool setback for lots 1 through 6 and lots 9 through 14 to be allowed to be 10 feet instead of 15 feet, since we have the buffer on the north side and the access drive for 2900 property on the south side. The lots 7 and 8 will remain with the same setbacks as the rest of the places, so they have the water property as well. So I'm here to answer any other questions you may have.
Any questions? Very good. Any questions from Mr. Glickstein that have not already been asked in the prior meeting? It appears that there's certainly is consistency of services. Development is consistent with the neighboring Plaza Soleil and is a natural extension of Gulfstream's single family home incentives. Setbacks seem reasonable to me based on the arguments given, and will enhance the value of these properties, which, as we heard before, will also add to tax revenue for the town. Seems to be a consistent use of the property, and I would be in favor of it. Let's ask, are there any dissenting voices? Comments, negative comments?
Mayor, just one comment, on the record, because I'm a board member of the Gulfstream Golf Club, I will be using myself in this.
Very good. Mr. Lyons is recused. We have several ordinances before us. Vice Mayor Scanlon.
So, Trey, we're gonna approve, obviously the comp plan amendment, the rezoning, and the text amendment in succession.
Yes, sir.
We'll make a motion to approve, the comp plan amendment to convert the site's existing future land use designation from public to recreation, from single family to public. And this is represented by ordinance number 21-1.
And we're gonna have the town clerk read those, all by title before voting.
I will do this, Sir Adam. Ms. Taylor, would you read ordinance 21/1?
An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the future land use map of the town's adopted comprehensive plan, redesigning 4.154 acres, more or less in size, from P Public to SF Single Family Residential, 4.158 acres, more or less in size, from Recreation to P Public, and 3.489 acres, more or less in size, from REC Recreation to SF Single Family Residential. Such parcels are located generally east of the US Highway 1 and north of the Place Au Soleil subdivision, as set forth herein and attached hereto, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. It's being presented on first reading this 12th day of March, 2021.
Thank you very much. Ordinance 21/1 has been presented to us on first reading. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, making a motion to approve and read it. Can you call the roll, please?
I'll second.
Second, sorry, use that.
Ms. Taylor?
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
and Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Let's move to ordinance number 21/2. Ms. Taylor?
An ordinance of the Town Commission, the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the town's zoning map to rezone 4.154 acres, more or less, in size from P Public Facilities District to RSP Residential Single Family Place Au Soleil District 4.158 acres, more or less in size, from OR Outdoor Recreation District to P Public Facilities District, and 3.489 acres, more or less in size, from OR Outdoor Recreational District to RSP Residential Single Family Place Au Soleil District. Six parcels are located generally east of US Highway 1 and north of Place Au Soleil subdivision, as set forth herein and attached hereto, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. And it's being presented this 12th day of March, 2021.
Thank you very much. Ordinance number 21/2 has been presented to us on first reading. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve ordinance 21-3.
That's 2.
Two, I'm sorry, I was looking at 3. I was anticipating. I'm ahead of myself.
There's a second. Ms. Taylor, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
and Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Let's move to ordinance number 21/3. Ms. Taylor, please read it first.
An ordinance of the Town Commission, the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the Town Code of Ordinances at Chapter 70, and that's open, Gulfstream Design Manual, Article 4, Site Development Regulations, Section 7074, setbacks to provide for a reduced rear setback for pools applicable to some homes in Place Au Soleil, Edition Number 2, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, providing an effective date, and it's being presented on first reading this 12th day of March, 2021.
Thank you. Ordinance number 21/3 has been presented to us for first reading. Is there a motion to approve?
Can I do that now? 21-3? I'll make a motion.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein. Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Very good. That concludes this application. I do want to thank our staff for working so diligently with the developer and his staff. This was a long and arduous process, but I think both sides worked very well together and have presented what should really be a nice improvement to the town of Gulfstream. So thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next item, an application by Ocean Marine for 3140 Polo Drive. Is there there anyone here to speak?
Mr. Mayor, it appears that the applicant is not here, to speak on, this, application. I think we can, have a short explanation of it and then move to a vote. Not wrong about that, so, I will just say very briefly, the applicant is seeking a 16.5-foot variance from a 20-foot setback requirement as set forth in section 66-369, which requires that low-profile pilot boat lifts be placed a minimum of 20 feet towards the center of the lot from the setback line. So in other words, it's a four-post boat lift that they'd like to have. It was too far in the middle of their boat dock, and so they were seeking a variance to move that 16 feet further to the south and further or closer to the adjoining neighbor, who I believe did send a letter to us expressing his opposition to this.
Without any presentation from the applicant, I at least will rely on the information presented in the packet. The ARPV heard this application and recommended it be denied, using standards 1, 2, 4, 5, and 8 as not having been met. Any comments or discussion?
No.
No,
Mr. Stanley?
we've had 2 dock variances, and, it's typically been the policy of the town, unless there's a hardship that's not, in what summary, that's not created by the homeowner. I mean, there's a true hardship, we typically are not, not inclined to approve variances with anything in regard to our docks. And as you know, in our code, other than the sections with regard to the lift, we have pre-designated plats and dock maps for every single lot on the code, in the code, with the size, dimensions, and locations when we did the code through UDKS. So there's not really even any guesswork as to lot dimensions, although the one error I found, but that's not applicable here, and that was fixed. So there's really not a lot of guesswork when it comes to docks in this town for our code or lifts or anything related thereto.
I also want to add that I did speak to the neighbor to the south, who very clearly in his letter was adamant that he was opposed to it.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Do you know what, I think it would infringe on the neighbor's site, so I don't see a need for this at all. So.
And also, I mean, if you look at the criteria for the variance, while the mayor cited certain sections, I think there's probably 3 or 4 others that they don't meet either. So it's not even close.
All right, well then, is there a motion relative to this application?
Yeah, I just moved to deny the variance requesting 6.5 feet modification from the previous setback forth in section 369 docks for placement of 4-post boat lift.
Can we hold this motion for 1 second? Trey, are we required to go down the standards here and vote no?
If you can just in your motion identify at least 1 or 2 that you believe are not met, then that's sufficient.
So we can adopt the standards
Yes, sir.
that were identified by the ARPV. We want a simpler way of doing it.
Okay.
So in your motion, if you might refer to standards 1, 2, 4, 5, and 8.
Okay, amending my motion to 1, 2, 4, 5, and 8, is that?
As not having been met.
As not having been met.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
and Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Town manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The first item is, utility undergrounding. I'm happy to say that, AT&T has completed their, what they describe in the industry of wrecking their old, infrastructure. In A1, on A1A, County Road, Little Club, and in the core area, with the exception of one house, and that's at 2900 Polo, right at the intersection Gulfview. They discovered, as we took many walks out here, that was a house, similar to Bob Burns, who had been provided AT&T service by a utility pole and one overhead line going to his house. So, that one, Bob Burns had to have a new, conduit, and similarly, here at 2900, it needs to have a new conduit. They wanted the town to do it, and we, did not do it because it was not really part of the settlement agreement, so it was really not our requirement to do that. And so AT&T said, okay, we'll do it. And so we're just waiting for them to do that. My understanding was that they were going to start working on that at the end of last week, and I haven't seen any activity this week yet. So, but that's all that AT&T has left to do. So that means everyone else has been connected, and they've taken down their old service.
And so the proposed schedule to remove the poles will be approximately when?
I made a call to FPNL this morning, and he was not available, but I can assure you I've been keeping our FPNL representative fully abreast of these schedules for AT&T and Comcast, and he is supposed to be making arrangements to schedule that. They usually need a lead time of about 6 to 8 weeks, but I began to, communicate with him many weeks ago. So
we're hopeful that it's sometime in May or June at the latest, the poles should be removed, all lines removed.
Correct. Now with Comcast, they, if you remember, they had presented a schedule to us. They are still up to date on their schedule to have a shutdown of their current coax nodes by the end of March. That would be 3/31, and then begin their rack out, as they call it, during the first 2 weeks of April.
Very good.
So, but I will caution that some of the residents over the last 2 months, Comcast, the staff, have tried to reach out to some of these residents that needed to make an appointment with them, and some have still not done that. So they've in fact done 3 or 4 times what they call a flash shutdown during this time period, where they actually shut down someone's service, and hoping that they will notice that and then call into Comcast. And all of those customers have been flagged so that their call takers didn't start out this way until I had a conversation with them. And so they have instructed their call takers and to recognize when it's a Comcast or a Gulfstream customer, to just skip through all of the, quagmire of making a 1-800 call and going to scheduling an appointment. If some of those have not made that appointment at the end of March, I mean, they'll lose service.
So we'll proceed with taking down the poles.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you know anyone who has not yet called, they better do it soon, or service will just be.
And it may be, and remember, they will not provide us with the addresses. So, there may be people that maybe don't even have the service anymore or don't live there, but so.
Okay. But we're going to proceed.
Correct.
All right. Mr. Dunham, the electronic
yes.
smart meters?
Yes, sir. Okay, so we've been budgeting every year since, if you can believe this, since 2012 to convert from old mechanical analog meters to new digital solid state weatherproof meters, otherwise known as smart meters. And so I don't know if you need for me to get into the difference between the old meters. Some of them we've had in place for 25 or 30 years.
These are smarter.
And these are smarter. and so, yes, and so I don't know if you want me to get into weeds about that. Most towns and cities do this. There's a labor issue, and then in terms of, going out and physically getting into every box, water meter box, which most of the time is underwater, and making the readings, bringing them back, and it's the labor not only in the field, but, in the office to register all of these readings and then the rereadings. And so these smart meters really, help reduce that issue. But one of the main reasons is because of the loss of water revenue. The older a meter is, the less it records the actual water that is going through the meter. And so, many towns that have meters that are 25, 30 years old that do experience the loss of revenue because it doesn't accurately record the amount of water that's going through the meter.
And the new smart meter will save on labor,
Oh,
or
absolutely.
staff significantly. You wave a wand or something over it.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's a drive-by. And the only other, we could have gotten even more, scientific if we had, wanted to build a tower, and we could control all that from the office, but that's really impossible. You have to have a tower that can reach every, customer, and that's really impossible to do, so. So anyway, yeah, there's a drive-by, it's all, digital, they come in here, they plug in the.
Well, you don't even have to do that, it's completely cloud-based.
Okay.
So you secure quotes?
Yes, so I was gonna have Trey just kind of bring you up to speed, this is an FYI as to where we are with that.
Can I ask a couple quick questions?
Sure.
So, it won't be a wireless, real-time kind of thing, where a homeowner could actually see what's going on the last week, correct? Because you won't have the towers.
Go ahead.
So, the meter itself does actually refresh constantly with data. If a resident wants it, it's just a matter of us going out and selecting that meter to pull the readings, and then they'll have it, everything up from the last time it was officially read for a billing cycle. So it will still take a little bit of, hey, just go do this for me. The staff will be happy to do it. We are now, but now they'll have day-by-day peak and low data.
So, as you might recall, my brother's had some issues.
Right.
Not the town, but, he had a leak in his refill of the pool or something.
Yep.
And it was running, just with this enormous bill.
Mm-hmm.
So, my question is, and obviously he's not the only one who experiences those kinds of things, and given that water's precious, how often will we read? Because we read every 2 months, and we're gonna continue to have, I learned about it 2 months later, as opposed to maybe a little earlier. Do you understand my general?
I do, and we do have the ability to do it, just create a schedule. We go, we take a reading so it does refresh the data without billing. So we could do it daily, weekly,
No, without.
right, whatever would make sense. It wouldn't take long to drive all the streets. You can do it at 25 miles per hour just driving down the street, so.
Okay, so you can talk to town manager, but I would encourage that at least, there's constant leaks,
Yes.
on people's properties. And rather than wasting a scarce resource, and also running up the bill of the resident, if we could somehow, without a lot of incremental effort on staff, that would be a nice thing.
And the nice thing about this is that we can, if there is an issue, when somebody gets their bill, they come in and they, dispute it, we can graph every day, their usage and say, well, look, on this day, you have a problem, so.
Thanks.
Okay.
If I can intervene for a second, that keeps 96 days of information on that meter. On a constant rotation. So whatever the last day is, it drops it and it picks up the new date and then it continues. It's constantly 96 days.
Good. Quotes?
So we've identified through our engineers a specific smart meter that is, like a sole source that's in the best interest of the town based on our specific needs, the conditions, things like that. It is a specific, sort of plug-in installation. Doesn't require a lot of disruption of landscaping in the yard to install. So we've identified that, we've identified the distributor that works in our area, so we essentially have that piece of the procurement, done. We're now just looking at installation. It would take an extremely long amount of time for our guys in-house to do that installation, across the entire town. So right now we're looking at that. We don't know if we're gonna find a piggyback or if we will put it out for bid for 30 days, in which case it would be back before you in about 2 months. So, but we have been working on this actively, and we feel like we're just bringing it in, across the finish line.
So we'll have another update at the next meeting,
We certainly can do that.
possibly with
Possibly with,
if you can piggyback.
right.
And once you get, we approve whatever it is, how long does it take to install all the homes these roads? I mean, I guess we'll have a contractor,
To do
right?
the installation itself, you mean, as far as all the meters?
Yeah.
They're telling me on an average from the contractors that I have spoken to, they're telling me within 2 weeks they should have everything completed.
Every house?
Every house, yes. Essentially, what I tried to do was put a package together that would allow us to be able to open up the meter box, unscrew the existing old meter, and replace it with an identical meter, but that's, ultrasonic, that's digital, that allows us to have, everything read immediately right then and there, and just drop it in the hole and plug it back up, and we're done.
Thank you. Good, great. Any other questions? Okay. ARPV meeting will be March 25th at 8:30 a.m. So I'm wishing to attend. Finance report, Mr. Dunn.
Yes, Mayor, I would like, Rebecca to, she makes, some notes at the beginning of our, balance sheet and report. I would like for her to at least, explain the, first, bullet that you see in there. And that, is, the, capital outlay fund, being over budget. So there's an explanation for that.
There is an explanation for that, and it's a good one. So, our 10-year capital improvement plan is really running on a calendar year, not so much our fiscal year. And so what we had planned for fiscal year 20 kind of ran into fiscal year 21. And since we are a local government governed by GASB and public entity reporting, our reporting has to be followed along with fiscal calendars. I can't take stuff that we received and paid for in services in November and move them into the prior year. So we were severely under budget last year in our water capital budget and our streets capital budget, but that's where this money is going to come from. We're going to reserve those funds and encumber them, and then at a later date, what we'll do is present a budget amendment to add those funds into this current year's budget. But we have plenty of money. I don't want y'all to worry. So we're just going to take it from last year's, but it does take a formal budget amendment for you guys to do that. But I'll do that later when everything's nice and done.
Okay. Any questions?
What was the number roughly on the cash flow?
You mean which number?
So these two line items that were over budget because of our fiscal year end.
So currently in our streets capital, we're $376,000 over budget. We, I actually need to take some of that and allocate it to the water fund. Right, because it's just kind of like get it paid and then I'll make some budget revisions to move it over to the water fund. I have $337,000 that I can pull from the general fund's last year budget and put it in this one, but once again, we're gonna have, most of that's gonna be moved over to the water fund, and in the water fund, we had $1.7 million left over in our budget. So there's a lot of money into the water fund that we can pull from and encumber and move it into this one. So I mean, but we're only talking about $376,000, and we have collectively almost $2 million that I can pull from last year's budget and put into this one.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. Captain Haslett?
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of Chief Allen, I ask that the February police report be accepted as submitted.
Questions? We'll set that as...
Mayor, do you
Yes,
mind
sir.
if I go back to Rebecca very
Yeah,
quickly?
sure.
Rebecca, on the
like the health insurance for police, you have two lines now, where you only had one before. So that's page 7, I'm just curious.
So that's just
I'm
a
not
mistake,
questioning
it's
it,
just
but-
how a ledger number got entered, and I can just move it, it'll be condensed. But thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it, thank you.
Move on to ARPV appointments. We have alternate member Amanda Jones and 2 regular members, Robert Dockery and Georgette Smith, up for reappointment. Any comments or motions?
I'll move that, they be approved.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes?
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes,
And Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
I guess I should have asked if they wanted to say. Too late.
They have to do their civic duties.
They're hired.
Let's move on to the addition to our items today, resolution number 21-1, Mr. Nazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so we're asking the town council to pass this resolution expressing the town's opposition to a bill that's been introduced into the legislature. The bill represents another attempt to strip away local government home rule authority and self-government. This bill attempts to preempt local governments from adopting zoning and development regulations that require specific building design elements for single and two-family dwellings, unless certain conditions are met. The bill defines the term building design elements to mean exterior color, type or style of exterior cladding, style or material of roof materials, roof structures or porches, exterior non-structural architectural ornamentation, location, or architectural styling of windows or doors, and number, type, and layout of rooms. So you can see for a town like Gulfstream, this would really gut our codes. I mean, we have an award-winning design manual, as you can see from some of the documents that we provided in here, and so this would really strike at the heart of our life. Gulfstream is so beautiful. So I'd like Mr. Nazaro to kind of tell you where the bill is at this point in time.
So this is the second year that a bill like this has been considered in Tallahassee. Right now it has passed all the House committees, and it is in its first committee in the Senate next week on Tuesday. We have 2 local representatives that are in that committee, Senator Polsky and Senator Powell. So we plan on reaching out to them. That just got set, I believe, yesterday for that committee. So for the bill to be heard on the House floor, it needs to pass at least 1 Senate committee. So we were hoping that the league would be working to sort of either get some modified language in there that would be beneficial to the town to allow us to continue to enforce our design criteria. Some of that would allow an exemption for overlay districts. A lot of the discussion from the sponsor from the House side always refers to open lots. Well, these are only open lots. It's about open lots. We're really trying to control construction costs. I'm sorry, not construction costs. That's actually what it does, but home costs in Florida. So if there are certain requirements that some of the examples that he gave, well, requiring an electric car charger in the garage or solar panels on the roof, these increased construction costs, that gets passed on to the home purchaser, and we want to make sure that those kind of things can't be regulated. So that is kind of not in keeping with sort of the very wide breadth of architectural style and windows and colors. So we really believe that we can broker some sort of a compromise between the developer that's essentially looking, or the builder that's essentially looking for this to be passed, and really saving these specialty cities like Gulfstream. I've been working with planners and lawyers from Coral Gables, Orlando, St. Augustine, St. Petersburg, all have a vested interest in maintaining their beautiful cities and that sort of style. So we're really working hard to get some language in there in the companion bill in the Senate that allows us to continue to maintain our code, essentially. This is just absolutely of critical importance, so we're really throwing everything we have at it. And we're not alone on this. It does look like, because it's been reintroduced this year, that there'll be repeated efforts in the future if it does get killed this year. So at this point, we're really looking at a brokered compromise that will allow us to have some sort of an exemption that we could use, and then that will be the end of it, and we won't have to worry about it next year. So that's kind of where we are and what we, what we're looking at for the rest of the session. I mean, everything is happening very quickly. It went through 2 committees in the House in the last 2 days. So, we're really just, as soon as it came on our radar, we just went full force, reached out to the Florida League of Cities representative. They have a contract lobbyist who's working very closely with the Senate committee who is considering it, and like I said, trying to get some of that language in there that would save us from the horrible impacts of this bill.
And as he said, last year this bill went before the legislature and it was actually killed in the Senate. So we're
cautiously
optimistic.
We technically don't have an overlay, so if that was an exemption, we'd have to create one.
Yes, sir. So, and sort of the plan would be creating an overlay district that is the core. So it'd be the core overlay district, it'd be the beachfront overlay district, overlay district.
We'd have to record those against all the required lots. That's a pain.
But
that's what we gotta do, that's what we have to do though.
That's kind of the feeling, right?
Yeah.
If we have a way to continue to enforce our design criteria, then it's worth it to do that, yeah.
So we have to do a zoning, if it passed, we'd have to immediately do a zoning in progress and then wait 2 to 3 months for you all and Marty to get it together, right?
So it'd take effect in July, so we'd have some time to get that figured out.
So, Tom, on that question, I know nothing on this subject. Is there a possibility that this legislation, once it's established, then it'd be too late to bring an overlay?
No, so I'll give you an example. So, not to take too long, this is another 1 week somewhere I'm gonna do it. So let's take the town of Delray, right? Because everyone thinks Gulfstream is different. It's all the same rules, but. So the town of Delray basically, doesn't have it's got design manuals, but only has a certain neighborhood. So normally when you build a house in Delray, Lake Ida, let's say, there is an overlay. But let's say take a neighborhood in Delray. I'm on Sherwood Forest by the golf club, the municipal golf club, probably a better example. All you do is get your architect, get your plans, and go to the building department. That's it. Here, that's what you do, but you actually have to go through Arpv for new construction, or if it's a level 3 renovation, and get approval of the facade and all this stuff. And that's really what an overlay is. So our design manual is an overlay. It's already done. But if whatever the amendment would be in this bill, that's an exception. So there's an overlay district in Delray and Seagate and the North Beach because they wanted to decrease mansionization. So you have to record an instrument approved by the town that says anytime you do any work or new development on this lot, you're subject to the North Beach overlay. You're subject to the Gulfstream Core overlay. All it is, in layman's terms, is a covenant approved by the town, recorded against each lot that points to the code that we already have that's already done. If that's indeed what the exemption is, we don't know what we're going to get.
Right.
If anything, or hopefully it'll just be safe.
It could be open lots, so again, working with some of these older cities, Coral Gables, St. Pete, St. Augustine, if we get definition of an open lot, which is what they were also pushing as a lot that's never had a home built on it before, obviously that would exempt us very easily. And I think there's maybe one parcel in Gulfstream that hasn't had a house built on it at some point.
Yeah, this project we just looked at. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking along the same lines as you, Paul. Is this something we would want to do now, overlay district, or is that putting the cart before the horse? What the bill would actually.
Sure, we don't know what that's going to look like at this time, and it would not take effect until July. first of this year, anything that passes. So we would have a little bit of time to do that. I can certainly reach out to Marty and start that conversation in the event that that is an exemption that we have, to see what sort of work we need to do, so we're ready as soon as as soon as this happens.
Okay, Trey, thank you very much for working on this. I know from the flurry of emails and conversations that you've been working really hard on this, and the town appreciates those efforts. It's important that we have a unanimous vote on this resolution so that we can put that forward against this bill. So we have before us resolution number 21-1. Are there any other comments or questions before we have it? Ms. Taylor?
This is a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulf Street, Palm Beach County, Florida, opposing House Bill 55 and Senate Bill 284 for the 2021 legislative session, and any bills that infringe on home rule authority to regulate building design, and it's providing an effective date.
Resolution number 21-1 has been read for our adoption. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21-1. Second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Any other comments, questions?
I have two comments from residents. One with respect to Rebecca, a resident on Old School Road. They did some major work in the house, and they were trying to get the final CO or some documentation from Del Rey, and they called Rebecca, and she resolved that very quickly, and this homeowner was very, very appreciative. The second comment I would make on Old County Road, when it was torn up, there was a section on the side of the road adjacent to our yard back here that had been dirt just because it had been torn up. And the town manager had some sod put in with irrigation, and the homeowner across the street from that and went out of his way to sort of grab me and say, "Oh, thanks a lot." I did that. So those are really great comments to hear from residents.
It is. We'd love to have the attaboys. That's great. Any other comments?
No, thank you.
If not, please remain to sign the resolution. The meeting is adjourned.
You know what? You did an incredible job. I thought we were gonna be here till 12 too.
Yeah, keep that thing rolling, Mayor, keep that thing rolling.
I've never been able to beat the vice mayor's record.
9 minutes. Hey, Joe, you know why you didn't go long? I couldn't say anything.
There you go.
Yeah, flag the flag and do the roll.
We don't have a conflict of interest for you from now on.